Once you log into AI Studio from the API dashboard, you will be greeted with the Agents page. This is where you will find all the agents you've created using your account. You can sort this view as a list or individual cards for each agent. You will also be able to see the details of your agent, such as the agent type, agent ID, language, API key, etc. On top, you will also be able to see 3 tabs labeled Agents, Reports, and Users. In the Reports tab, you will be able to monitor the performance of your agents using various options to sort and filter this data. We will learn more about this at a later stage. The Users tab helps you keep track of the information your users provide in the conversational flow. We do this by creating user parameters where the data is collected during the interaction between the virtual assistant and your user. This is then stored automatically in order to utilize this information in future interactions to enhance customer experience. Let's go back to the Agents page and create an agent. You can create an agent by clicking this button right here. From here, you can choose what type of agent you want to create. You can choose between telephony, which is a voice agent, WhatsApp, HTTP, and SMS. Let's create a telephony agent for today. Once you click Next, you will be led to fill in the details of your agent. You'll be asked to select your region, where you can choose whether your agent is being used in the US or in Europe. Choosing the right region will ensure the agent's quick response time. Agent name, where you can give your agent a unique name that will reflect its purpose. This name can be changed at any point and is meant for your eyes only. You will also be able to see the API key. This shows your Nextmo account or sub-account key. This is useful when you want to associate a phone number to your agent via the API dashboard. Language. Select the language of your agent. Once you choose a language, you won't be able to change it for that specific agent. We currently support over 30 languages with many more to come in the future. Voices. This is only for telephony agents. This is where you can select the voice of your agent. Depending on the language you chose previously, you can pick from different voices and accents in that language. You can also add a test sentence here and click play to listen to it. We support Amazon Polly Voices along with a variety of paid premium neural voices. Time zone. Choose the time zone that your agent will operate in. For example, if you build the agent in London but it's meant to be used in New York, it's better to define the agent time zone as EST. All reports for the agent will be generated accordingly. Once you click Next, you can then either pick from one of these helpful templates which cover common use cases and give you a base to start off from, or you can also choose to build from scratch. Let's choose to build from scratch for now. You'll finally be led to choose an event that will trigger your agent. So you can choose if your agent does the calling, or if you want your users to have the first word, or if you want to create a custom API event. Let's choose inbound for now and create our agent. Once you've created your agent, you'll be led to the canvas. This is where you will build out your agent. On your left, you will see the toolbar with all the details of your agent, along with the action nodes that are required to build the agent. Upon clicking the channel symbol here, a drop-down menu will open with a few options. Agent Details allows you to see all the relevant agent details in a quick glance. If it is a voice agent, this will also include the voice, volume, and noise sensitivity of the agent under the telephony setting. The API key and the JWT token can also be found under the integration setting. Phone settings is where you can assign and disconnect numbers that you have bought under this API key for this agent. More on buying numbers later. Versions helps you look at different versions of the agent, including drafts and published versions. The duplicate option is simply to duplicate your agent. Export allows you to export your agent as a CSV file. And finally, you also have an option to delete the entire agent. You can also copy your agent ID, select and create from the properties, drag and drop nodes, and add flows and events, all from the toolbar. To learn more in detail, please visit our product documentation. On your right, you will see the canvas with a start node in the middle. This is exactly where your agent will begin. This is the starting point of your conversational flow. If you click on the Start node, you will also be able to enable call recording and enter a URL where you want an HTTP request to be sent in case the call is disconnected. Please note that without the Start node connected to the rest of the conversation, the virtual agent cannot be used and will not execute your flow. On the top right, you will also be able to see the Tester and Publish buttons. The tester helps you test out your conversation without publishing the agent for live use via phone call for telephony agents and inbuilt chat. You can also preset certain parameters that you want the agent to work with using the gear icon. The Publish button simply allows you to publish your agent for live use. Let's build an agent to handle orders over voice call. We first need to greet the agent. To do this, we need to add a speak node. Nodes are what we call these little building blocks. Each type of node has a different function, as you will see. The speak node allows you to talk to your user without expecting any input back. Let's add a greeting into the speak node. You can also listen to the prompt to make sure that the prompt sounds exactly as expected.
Welcome to Vonage Shipping.
Once done, we can click on Save and Exit to save our work. Now that we've greeted the user, we also want to know what the user is calling in for. But first, we'll have to connect it to the Start node here. When we collect the user input, we also need a place to store it. To do that, we need to create a parameter. You can either create a parameter here in the toolbar, or you can add a collect input node and create it directly from here. To create a parameter, we need to first name it. Let's name ours topic and assign an entity type to it. The entity type dictates the type of input that you want to accept. For example, if you're expecting a number, you can choose a preloaded system entity called sysNumber. Similarly, if you want to collect a date, you can choose sysDate. You can also create your own entity by going to Properties here and selecting Entities. For a list of what is included in these preloaded system entities, please visit the Studio documentation. In this case, we want to ask the user an open-ended question, so let's pick the sysAny entity, which accepts all kinds of input. Now that we've saved the parameter, we can go back and add our prompt. You can also add multiple prompts here, which the agent can choose randomly from during the course of the call. You can add a retry by adding the prompt here and the number of retries you want. SysAny is an entity type that encompasses all types of input, so it may not be particularly useful for this use case. You can also change the amount of time that the agent waits for the user's input. You can also add context keywords which you want the agent to focus on whilst collecting the input. You can also enable DTMF collection, which is input via the keypad, and set the specifics for that as well. You can enable Bargain if you want the user to be able to interrupt the agent with their input. Entity ambiguation can be selected if you think that the user may provide a response that is confusing for the agent. Selecting this option allows for a specified retry between two options of what the user could mean. Again, in our case, since we're using sysAny, there can be no ambiguity because we aren't mentioning any specifics to be differentiated against. Once you're done, you can click Save and Exit to go back to the canvas. Alternatively, you can also use a listen node in place of the collect input. The listen node does exactly what it says. It listens for user input. You can select the parameter under which you want the input to be stored, decide whether you want to collect speech or DTMF, and note down the context keywords you want the agent to pick up on. Now we need to segregate user input. We can do this either using the classifications or the conditions node. For this use case, since we're using a sysAny type parameter, let's use classifications. The classifications node allows you to classify between intents. Intents and the training sets involved document all the different ways your user can say the same thing. For example, you can have an intent labeled car hire, and the training phrases can include rent a car for hire, car rentals, and so on. Let's create our intents. To create your intents, you need to go to Properties, select Intents, and select Create Intent. We need to name the intent. So let's name one for new orders. And then we also need to specify the user expressions. So for example, in the new order intent, the training phrases could include we recommend adding at least 5 to 10 unique expressions for each intent. Once you're done creating your intent, you can click on Save and go back to see all of your intents. Let's create another intent to change delivery dates. So the process remains the same, where you name the intent and then you add the user expressions. Make sure to include all the phrases that follow the general syntax of the sentences your target audience will realistically use. Next, we need to go back to the classifications node. Select the parameter that we just collected in the previous node. In this case, it's topic. And then include all the intents that topic can be separated into. Thus, we have now added a step to differentiate between user input using the grouping and classification of intents. You can also choose to annotate certain parts of the sentence to extract, or if you want to specifically recognize certain words that are not part of the English dictionary. In this case, let's say we want to capture the type of appliance, specifically different ways of saying mixer. To do this, we need to go to Entities and create a custom entity. Entities are a list of custom values and their synonyms that can serve as a database for the agent to use as a reference. Let's create an entity for appliances. So let's add mixer as the value. And in the synonyms, we can add all the different possible ways of saying mixer. We can add another one for washing machines. Be sure to click enter after each synonym. You can do this for all colloquial names of each of the values you want to capture. Next, we need to create a parameter for the specific input to be stored under. To do that, we need to go to Parameters, create a new parameter. Let's call it Appliances. And select the entity that we just created as the entity type. Now we can go back to the intents and distinguish the word that we want to annotate. So in this case, it's mixer, so let's select it. And from the drop-down list, we can select the parameter that we just created. What we've essentially done is that even though we only have mixer listed under the user expressions, even if the user said, I want to order a food processor, the agent will understand that they mean mixer. Another advantage of this is that you're also saving the exact input you need under the newly created parameter. So under the appliances parameter, you'll have the exact term that you're looking for. This you can also use later. So let's say the case is that if instead of intents you want to differentiate between entities, you can use the conditions node. So for example, if we want to confirm the user's order, what we can do is we can add a collect input node here and confirm with the user about the appliance they're calling about. So we can add something like in this case, we're expecting a yes or no answer. So we need to create a parameter that will only accept variations of yes or no. Studio has a variety of system entities that are built for this sort of scenario. So let's create a parameter. Let's call it confirm appliance. And for the entity type, let's select sysconfirmation. Sysconfirmation includes a large variety of yes or no synonyms. We will then assign this parameter to this collect input node. Save and exit. And then connect it to a conditions node. In the conditions node, we need to specify routes for the responses. Let's create a new condition. Select the same parameter that was collected in the previous node. In this case, it's confirm appliance. Select the operation or the circumstances is equal to and the value that we want to adhere it to. What we've done here is we've essentially let the user know that if the input collected under confirm appliance is equal to yes or any of its synonyms, this condition is satisfied. Let's name the condition and exit. Similarly, we can create a condition for no. Thus, we can alter the flow of the conversation based on this response. What if you want to route the call over to a live agent at this point? Simple. For that, we have a dedicated node called call routing. The call routing node allows you to transfer the call to a specified number, contact, SIP, or even parameter which includes a valid phone number. You can also choose to record the call beyond the transfer and store the transcription within a parameter and transfer any DTMF input you've collected within the virtual assistant through to the routed call. You will also be able to send an email or an SMS at any stage of the flow. So perhaps you want to collect the new delivery date and then send them an SMS or email confirmation. This can easily be done using the send email or the send SMS nodes. First, let's collect the dates. To do that, let's add a collect input node here. Let's create a new parameter. Call it new date. And select the entity as sysdate. Let's save this and go back to enter the prompt. Now that we've saved this node, we can add an SMS or a send email node. In the send SMS node, you will have to specify where the SMS is coming from. So for now, let's just say you will also have to specify where the SMS is going. We have a system parameter called caller phone number. This just means the user's phone number. So we can send it there and we can send them the new date. The send email node works similarly. For this, however, since we don't have the user's email, we will have to collect that in this step or in another additional step. It's the same process where you will have to add the user's email. You will have to type in the subject. You can add your body and format it to your liking. You also have the option to add an attachment. The way to use this is in the collect input node. You will have to select this option called should record. Once you have enabled it in the collect input node, you can select it from the drop-down list here. So whatever input is collected in this node can then be used as an attachment within the email. Say that you've finished making your entire conversation flow and you want to end the conversation. We have a dedicated node for that as well. Connect the end call node to terminate the call at any point in the flow. Let's talk about integration. Studio makes integrating into CRMs and SQL databases as easy as a dream. There are a few ways of doing this, either through our dedicated nodes for Salesforce or by using webhooks. Let's look at webhooks first. Webhooks can be used in cases where your database accepts HTTP API requests. This means that the database needs to be REST API compliant. To get the webhook to work, all you need to do is select the type of action. You can choose from get, post, delete, put, and patch. Paste your endpoint URL. Insert your headers. Your body can be in JSON, HTML, text, XWWW form URL encoded or XML format. And you will also have to specify the query parameters you have to send. You also need to map your response by assigning the object path to a parameter that you have created within the agent. Integration with Salesforce is even easier. You will need to make a connected app with full OAuth access in order for Studio to access your database. From there, it's easy to authenticate your agent by just adding the authentication node and adding all of your credentials, including your consumer key and your secret along with your username and password. You will also need to create a parameter to save your access token. Then, you can use the Salesforce action nodes to either get, update, or create records. To learn more about the Salesforce nodes, please visit our product documentation, where the details of the process of creating a connected app along with the helpful tips on how to use these nodes is available. What if when your customer says, I want to speak to someone at any point of the flow, you want to be able to route them to an assistant? Enter context switch. This node allows you to recognize intents from any part of the flow and change the flow of the conversation based on that recognition. So, in the case of customer service, what we can do is we can add the context switch node, select the intent that we want to recognize at any point of the flow, and now we can choose to route it appropriately. This node cannot be connected to the endpoint of any node. However, like all nodes, its endpoint needs to be connected in order to decide the flow upon recognition. Let's talk about fallbacks. What happens when there's no input or if the user provided input is missed? This is where the counter and the reset counter nodes are particularly helpful. The counter node, as its name explains, allows you to count the number of times a certain outcome has been triggered. So for example, if we connect this counter node to this missed input, and we set the number of retries to 2, we will then be able to decide what will happen the first and the second time there's a missed input. Thereby, we can decide the number of retries and thus the path of the flow using the counter. So for example, in the first time there is missed input, we want to let the user know that what they've said is invalid. So we can say something like, sorry, and we can connect this back into the flow. And the second time there's a missed input, we might want to just route them. So we can go ahead and connect this to the call routing. The reset counter does, again, exactly what it says. It resets the counter back to 0 where you place it. When you use one counter node for multiple nodes, the counter fills up quickly because it does not differentiate between the different nodes that it's been connected to. Thus, when you choose to add a reset counter node, you can choose to reset a particular counter at that point of the conversation. How can you access a feature that Voice API allows but isn't present on Studio? Use the NCCO node to access functions like record, stream, notify, etc. within Studio using a JSON body. Please note that input and pay action along with arrays are not supported. What if you only want to record a portion of the call instead of the entire call? To do that, the Start Recording node allows you to start recording at any point in the flow. When you use this node, make sure to deselect record call in the start node. Working with a large agent, you can create subflows for easier navigation. Simply click on flows and add a flow to create a new subflow. You can then add your flow. Once you're done creating your flow, you can add an exit flow. This exit flow node allows you to go back into the main flow. The way of adding this subflow into the main flow is by first entering your main flow, then going to your nodes, selecting the flow node, and selecting the flow that you've just created. You will have to connect this to wherever you think is appropriate within your flow. What if you want to do something that Studio has no designated node for? If your action can be performed using JavaScript, then you can add a custom code node and write out your code and save the result as a parameter to use within the agent. What if you want to collect the number of times a certain node has been triggered within your agent? You can do this by adding tags. Tags are a great way to monitor your agent's progress, see what your users are typically asking for, and then use that information to optimize your agent. To add tags, you can go to Properties and create tags. You will be asked to create a category of the tag and the tag label itself. Once your tags have been saved to the appropriate node, click on the three dots on top, select Attach Tags, scroll down to the bottom, and select the tag that you've just created. By doing this, you will now know each time this node has been triggered during a conversation. Now that you've learned how to build an agent, it's time to test it out and publish it for live use. You can test out your voice agent using the inbuilt tester by both call and inbuilt chat. Want to see how the agent performs with certain types of input? You can click the gear icon here and pre-fill some values and test out the agent for that scenario. Once you're happy with the agent's performance, you can publish the agent for live use. To do this, you will need to buy a number from the API dashboard, which supports voice and SMS if required. You can then come back to your agent, assign the number, fill in some details that will let you know what was changed within this version, and publish your agent for live use. Your customers can now reach your agent using this number. Once your agent is live, Studio offers you multiple reports so that you're able to optimize your virtual assistants to fit your user needs. On the reports page, there are multiple parameters you can sort your reports by. Region. You can sort out your agents by the regions they serve. You can choose from Europe and the United States. Report type. You can choose from the kind of reports that you want to see. You can choose from dynamic table, call logs, tags, parameters, and last collected tag. You can also choose the date and the time of the reports that you want to see. AI Studio only holds up to 90 days of reports, with the recording being held for 30 days only. API key. If you have multiple sub-accounts or API keys, you can sort out the reports by selecting the API key of the agent you require. Agents. Here you can select the agent which you need reports for. Time zone. Select the time zone that you need the reports to be set against, and the report state can be used to segregate the reports based on the status of the interaction. You can choose from all, success, warning, or error. Dynamic table allows you to sort out your reports by selecting information that's important to you and creating custom reports based on that information. You can choose from a wide variety of data that is collected during the calls. Call logs are the default report type where you can select a call, listen to the audio recording, and also see the transcript of the call. The tags report allows you to see all the tags that were collected for all the sessions for the selected time and date. The parameters report displays all the information that is collected under all the parameters within the agent. And lastly, the last collected tag allows you to view all the last collected tags for all of the sessions.